Welcome to the Newtown Big Dreams podcast, an interview-style talk show that's your gateway to the fabulous and fascinating people who relocated to start a new life. Whether you're new to our podcast or your city, our fellow neighbors from across Canada, North America, and the entire English-speaking world share their stories of reaching new horizons and big dreams. So sit back and relax as we navigate in-depth and intimate conversations with entrepreneurs, thought leaders, executives, creatives, and anyone who can share their story about their Newtown big dreams. And now, here's your host, Luke J. Menkes.
Hey everybody, this is the first episode of Season 3. It's episode 180. And we've been using new software called Riverside FM. And most of these interviews, it's going to sound like the person is sitting right next to me here in my studio, just like the old days. What Riverside does is it records me on my computer and it records the guest on their computer. So any internet static you hear during a normal Zoom call, that gets eliminated completely because it's recording that person, even overseas, even 15,000 kilometers away. It's recording them on their device. Now, in this case, my guest was in Richmond, Virginia, and he was having technical difficulties. So we actually recorded this over Zoom. So it's audible. You can hear what we're saying. It's not bad, but you can really tell the difference from a Zoom call to Riverside FM. So please bear with it. It's not the best sound quality, but it's good enough. And let me know what you think of the difference between a Zoom call and Riverside FM. So here we go, episode 180, the season 3 launch of the Newtown Big Dreams podcast. So I'm here this morning on a Zoom call with Steve Preda from Richmond, Virginia. And Steve's passion is to help people build self-managing, fast-growing, and high-profit businesses. Since 2002, Steve has helped more than 250 entrepreneurial organizations become valuable and sellable by serving as a mergers and acquisitions advisor, a business coach, a certified EOS implementer, and a certified Pinnacle business guide. So Steve knows all about business. We want to talk to him today about his book. He's got a new book. It's called Buyable, Your Guide to Building a Self-Managing, Fast-Growing, and High-Profit Business. And it's on Amazon. We'll give the link to that book in the show notes. So the book, Steve, includes your story of coming to America. So I want to ask you about that as well. How is the weather in Richmond this morning?
The weather is beautiful. The sun is just coming up, and it's going to be in the low 70s today. So I'm looking forward to a run after my birthday here in the afternoon, which is going to be about 10 hours from now.
Mm-hmm. Wonderful. So tell us the story of how you came to Richmond.
So how we came to Richmond. So I was a business owner. I ran an investment banking firm in Budapest, Hungary, and in Bucharest, Romania, in Central Europe. And we started in 2002, and the business grew nicely. We had our ups and downs. In 2008, we almost went out of business. It was a very tough time for us. The market froze, and essentially for a year we were hand to mouth, figuratively speaking, as a business. Mm-hmm. And then we bounced back. And 2011 promised to be a great crop, a great year, the best year ever. And then in August 2011, the Eurozone crisis broke out, and suddenly the clouds gathered again on the sky, and countries were on the brink of bankruptcy, like Greece and Portugal and Ireland, and banks stopped lending, and all our transactions, we had 6 transactions in the works. They all froze, as they do in times of crisis. Investors are wary of investing any money anywhere. Mm-hmm. And we were on vacation at our lake house in Hungary. And my wife and I, they looked at each other and we said, are we going to wait for strike 3? So this is strike 2 after 2008. What shall we do? We have 4 little children, and things are not looking great. Hungary was going through a transition from a democracy to something less than a democracy. And we felt like, okay, maybe this is time. So I started researching options, and Canada was an option. But it looked like it was more difficult to get a visa there as an entrepreneur. And I found a great opportunity in the US. So then we started looking at different cities in the US, and we were still part of a network of international firms. And I was looking for a place in the US where there was no competitor. And one of these states were Virginia. And what I liked about Richmond was that it was close to a major metropolitan center, Washington, D.C., but it was still rural to it. So it felt like it was going to be much easier to start in a smaller city. Mm-hmm. It looked in many ways similar to Budapest. I mean, Richmond used to be the capital of the Southern Confederacy of the U.S. It had a very bloody history like Hungary has. We have a river cutting through the city, and we have the flat side, the hilly side. The size of the city was comparable, and good outdoors, good close to the beach, to the ocean, good skiing here. Mm-hmm. So we decided to take a plunge, and we came over here. And the story I'm telling in the book is why, right as we were getting ready to leave, a few months before we were about to leave, I got a phone call from a guy who ran a really successful private equity firm in Budapest, and he suggested that we merge our firms, so investment banking, private equity. We merge our firms and we expand in Central Europe. And his name was Christian, and told him, Christian, thank you for approaching me. It's a great honor. However, a small thing coming up. We actually committed to move to the US, so I won't be able to be your partner. However, if you feel like it's a good thing, then why don't you give me an offer for the business? Since I'm leaving, you can buy it. So he did just that, and the day I received his offer, I'm still cursing that day, and I'm cursing myself for being so naive to ask for it, because his offer basically said that, Steve, you don't really have a business, so you are kind of a one-trick pony. You are the chief, you're the chef and bottle washer in your business. You're the CEO. You're getting the clients. You have the investor relations. However, we are really happy to pay for your fancy furniture and your computers. And then, as we close your deals, we're going to give you a commission. So that was a non-starter. Right. But we were committed already to come, so we moved over here. And the first year was commuting back and forth every 3 weeks. I would jump on a plane. I would fly to Budapest, spend a couple of days there. Then I would go over to Bucharest. I would spend a day or two over there and flew back to Hungary. But the good thing was that my team really stepped up. I introduced a management operating system called the Entrepreneurial Operating System, and they started taking on tasks, and essentially within a year, the business became self-managing, and my buyer came back and wrote me a nice check. Nice. So that's the story I tell in the book, and this is how we arrived here.
So you changed things around and made it much more valuable as an asset to sell to someone. And that's what the book is about, right?
So the book is about how to make a business buyable. And buyable means that it creates options for you. It doesn't mean you have to sell it. It means it becomes a valuable asset to other people as well as you. And then you have options. You may just delegate everything to a management team, and you spend 4, 8, 12, however many hours you want in the business or not.
Yes.
Or you can transition it to your descendants or to your own management team. You can sell it. You can introduce, you can sell a minority stake to an investor to take some chips off the table.
Right.
So that's the idea of making a business viable, making it self-managing, growing, and profitable.
Mm-hmm. Now, when a lot of people, when they start a business, they dream of having it forever. So why would you need to make a business viable if it's something you're planning to keep forever?
That's a great question. Well, I would reverse this question. So why would anyone build an unviable business? How does it make sense? So if you have the chance to build a great business, you might as well make it viable because it allows you, it gives you more profit, which means that you can, you don't have to take it out of the business. You can plow it back and use it to grow the business. And when you have a growing business, you can attract high quality employees because good people, they want to join growing businesses where they can grow their careers. So you can attract much better people. You can attract better opportunities, which are more exciting for you. When you have a stagnating business, you're always on the defensive. You're fighting against competitors who are growing and making you less and less relevant. It's a very painful experience.
Right.
You're barely profitable. It's a lot of stress. So why would anyone take on building an unviable business and going through all that stress and pain instead of a viable business, which is profitable, which is self-managing, which means you can dedicate your time to what's most important to you personally. It could be your family, it could be your hobbies, it could be another business, it could be philanthropy, whatever it is. And you have a team which is thriving around you. So you see people happy, you're helping people be successful in your business. In my mind, there's no reason, it doesn't make sense even to build an unviable business.
Right. So in the book, you talk about proactive versus reactive entrepreneurs. Tell us the difference between the two and why this makes a difference to how people succeed financially and even emotionally if they're reactive instead of proactive.
So a couple of examples for reactive entrepreneurs. A reactive would be who treats the business as a lifestyle business, and they just manage the business. They take money out every year to pay for their lifestyle, but they are not really thinking about turning this business into an asset which is independent of themselves, an autonomous entity. And then life will throw some, may throw some curveballs. So for starters, all of us grow old at some point, and we will not be able to carry on. Many of us get sick. Some of us go through a divorce, and we need cash. We need to share our assets with someone whom we are no longer living with. The circumstances can change. Your industry may get disrupted. So a reactive entrepreneur is not thinking ahead, is just living in the moment and reacting to whatever happens. And when they get sick, then they have a business, they have an unviable business, and they will have to get rid of it for pennies on the dollar. Or if they feel at some point they feel burnt out, they don't have the energy anymore to run the business, then they are in trouble. The other kind of situation that a reactive entrepreneur would experience is when they actually get approached by a buyer, but because they don't know exactly what they want to do, and when they sold the business, they are kind of playing it by ear, and they are listening to their emotions and their instincts. So one example is I had a client back in the mid-2000s, and it was a successful construction firm started by two partners. One was a politician who was bringing all the business in. The other one was a CEO from the construction industry. And they were very successful, and they hired my firm to help them sell the business. And they had a target price. But what happened was, it was a good business, and they got an offer quite early in the process. They signed an LOI. And when we went into the due diligence, they realized that the business was still growing dynamically, and their price was no longer a good price. So they asked me to renegotiate the deal. And after that, they again realized that this was still not a good price, because maybe they could still get more than that. The market was really hot in 2007. So they wanted to renegotiate. So they renegotiated a couple of times. And finally, we got close to the signing. And I thought that everything's going to be all right. We had our German buyers were flying in, and we were going to have just crossing T's and I's and signing the document on Friday. They arrived on Thursday, and my client told me that they're not selling the business. They just merged with they just acquired another company, and they're going to be more profitable. So the buyer arrived, and I told them that this business is not for sale for this price, and they couldn't leave town anymore because there were no flights out of Budapest. So we went out into the night, and after much drinking and dining, at 2 a.m. in the morning, I managed to get them to sign a new deal on a piece of napkin. And I thought that this was going to be the greatest deal of my life. And the next morning, went to the attorney's office, and only one of the sellers were going to show up with a power attorney from the other. The CEO showed up. And he showed up 40 minutes late. And then he said that he still had a small thing before he signed, which was an increase to his salary by 50%. As being part of an international group and everything. And the buyers agreed to fund 51% of the increase, because they were acquiring 51%, and the CEO wouldn't hear of it. So they walked out, and I was despondent. I couldn't sleep for three nights. This was the biggest deal of my life. It was slipping away. And finally, Monday morning, I had this idea that maybe I could pay for the salary increase of the CEO, because we were gonna, make $2 million on this deal. I could do that. I could sacrifice half our fee, pay for the salary, and then close the deal. So I called the buyers, and they would be okay. They were going to be okay with that. And then I called the seller, and I called the politician, and he was driving in his Maserati somewhere in the countryside.
Yeah.
And told him, hey, Ace, I have a deal. We can still do this. Are you interested? Says, sure. What's your idea? Well, I could pay for the salary increase of the CEO, and everyone would be whole, and we could do this deal. And then he took a couple of seconds, and he started laughing. What are you laughing at? Well, Steve, you didn't really seriously think we were going to pay your fee?
Oh, wow.
So that was a group. So they didn't have a specific idea. They just got greedy. They saw the dollar signs, and they kept increasing the price. Now, what happened was the next year, their party lost the election. The politicians' party lost the election, and they started losing their customers. And within 3 years, they were out of business. They went to Chapter 11. Wow. And the owners, they got convicted, and finally they managed to release in controversial circumstances. They appeared, and they got released, but they almost lost their freedom as well. So this is what can happen to an entrepreneur that is reactive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Entrepreneur that is proactive, they build a business that is viable. Another client, a toy company, they built a business that ran on SAP. It had a management team in the wings, and they came to us, and within 6 months, we sold the business at a high multiple, and they could walk away. They didn't have to stay and serve the company any longer. It was seen as an independently running, self-managing business, and they could exit. And they could realize their life ambitions.
Mm-hmm. So I guess what a person should do is think about the future state of their business, what would be perfect, and reverse engineer from there. So exactly. How does a person determine that? Like, how do you determine your personal financial goals and how your business is going to help you achieve that, and then reverse engineer what you have to do today and next month and next year?
So the financial goal is kind of easy if you know your personal goal. If you know the ideal life, I call it the ideal life, or your next chapter that you want to live, that requires a lot of soul searching. And a lot of people don't have clarity around it. So do they want to be entrepreneurs? If they don't have money issues, if they can afford to do whatever they want, what would they be doing with their waking hours? And yes, many people want to stay an entrepreneur because it's stimulating, especially when you have a buyable business. Why not stay an entrepreneur and work your hours in the business and have all the excitement of being able to tinker with the business, which has a great team? But some people want something else. Some people want, they have a hobby. Maybe they like to explore and travel. Maybe they want to, run a sports team. Maybe they want to spend time with their family. So that's the first thing, is figuring out what you really want to do, ideally. And when you know that, then it becomes much easier to figure out what it takes financially to get there. There's also a tool for my readers of my book. If they go, and if the listeners as well, if you go on magicnumbercalculator.com, then you can, there's a model there which gives you the details how to calculate your magic number. How much money do you need in your next chapter, whether it's retirement or another business. So you can figure that out. It basically depends on the lifestyle you want to live. How much money do you need for that? Is it a couple $100,000? Is it more? Do you want to own some toys? Do you want to own a second or a third home? Do you want to collect cars? Do you want to give money away or to your children's college fund?
Mm-hmm.
And you can figure out what your magic number is. And then you look at how to get this magic number harvested from your business. And there's a model, there's another calculator which you can check out. It's called valueandgrowthcalculator.com. Mm-hmm. And you can figure out how big you need to grow your business given your ownership stake and your location and your time horizon. And then you know how much you need to grow the business. And then the next step is, how do you grow the business?
Right.
And, but this is how you reverse engineer.
That's excellent. I want to ask you on a side point. So you're talking about lifestyle and future goals. Are you happy that you chose Richmond? Like, you've traveled all over the States now with your business. Do you have any regrets about going to Richmond?
Well, I don't have any regrets. I think Richmond is a great place to live and to raise children.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a small but. So I was traveling recently to Minneapolis for a conference, and I arrived early. And I thought, okay, I read up on the city to learn a little bit about the history and what Minneapolis is about. And then I saw that Minneapolis is part of a statistical area which is 4 million people. I said, what is this special statistical, central statistical area, whatever it's called? And which of these areas is Richmond part of? So I looked on the East Coast, and there's a site on Wikipedia, and I was shocked to see that actually the East Coast is essentially back-to-back with these statistical areas. Basically, these are territories where people are moving to work in jobs. At least 50% of the population is working somewhere else in this area, within this area. And the East Coast, it was like back-to-back from Maine to Florida, except for Central Virginia. Central Virginia was kind of a white spot. We were the only non-statistical area. So, wow, now I understand why the living expenses are lower here, because it's fewer jobs. So maybe if I moved again, maybe I would pick something which is more metropolitan and offer more opportunities for business. I mean, I did well, but who knows what could have been if it was kind of a more vibrant, economically more vibrant area.
Right. Now, in your book, you talk about 7 management concepts that a person should master in order to orchestrate their business into a well-oiled machine. Tell us about those 7 management concepts that we have to master.
Yes. So this comes from 7 different people, actually. Each concept comes from a different person. And these concepts have been developed over the last 100 years, actually 110 years. So the first one came out of Frederick Winslow Taylor, who wrote The Principles of Scientific Management. He was the guy who lived in England, and he worked for a big engineering company and a big manufacturing company. And he figured out that most workers are not working efficiently enough. And if you processize, systemize their work, you can grow their effectiveness by a factor of 100, actually, over time. And there are other concepts. The other concepts came through the decades of the 20th century. And these concepts are in three groups. So the first group is just to build the foundation of a business. And there are two concepts that go into it. One is the culture and the structure. So first, Jim Collins, who wrote Good to Great and many other iconic business books, he talks about get the right people on the bus first, get the wrong people off the bus, and put the right people in the right seats. So that's kind of creating the culture of the organization, defining what right people look like, and creating a structure where people are in the right seats in the organization. The second element of the three elements is, I call it direction. So when you have the right culture and the right structure, you have to determine where you're going, which is your vision. You have to visualize the future and share that vision. And then when you have a vision, let's say you want to grow this company to $100 million, or you want to make it a market leader, or whatever it is, then come up with a strategy. Second concept within the direction piece is the strategy. How you're going to get there, how you're going to be different from your competitors, and how you're going to get there. And the third piece of this is all about realizing this vision and strategy. So it's about the execution. So setting goals and having a cadence of meetings to accomplish those goals, and measure the accomplishment of those goals, measure your performance. The second one is processes. So systemize your business so that everyone knows what they are doing. You're consistent, you're scalable, you're manageable. You can absorb young people with less intuition and experience and help them be successful. And finally, the alignment. How do you make sure everyone is rowing in the same direction in your company? They keep their eye on the grand prize, your big, hairy, audacious goal into the future. They share your vision and they share your values. And then you can build a really great company. And then you have figured out these 7 concepts, then you just become stronger and stronger in all 7 over time. And it becomes like a flywheel, which will propel you to higher and higher heights.
I remember in the book, Collins, Good to Great, he talked about getting people off the bus. And how do you advise people when they have problem employees? There's always, someone in the company, not always, but often there's someone in the company who's creating a problem, just has a bad attitude. Maybe in some ways they do good work, but they don't get along with people, for example. How do you deal with that?
Yeah. So basically, for someone to be an A player or an A plus in your company, they have to be really strong on your culture fit. So they have to live their core values, and they have to be a high performer, very productive employee. So we assess the talent of the organization, and we plot people on a chart, 1 to 10 on culture fit, 1 to 10 on productivity. And people who are on the top right corner, they are A players. Now, some companies believe that they have 70, 80% A players or even more. But when we plot them on the chart, when we plot people on the chart, it turns out more in most cases, they have less than 50% A players. So you can actually upgrade and top grade. There's one of the tools that he uses, Brad Smart top grading, who is the authority on improving the quality of the workforce. So how do we get more A players in your business? And there are ways of doing that.
Right. So what is a management blueprint? I'm guessing that has to do with the management style of the CEO. Is that right? And how do you determine which is the correct blueprint for you?
That's a great question. So the management blueprints are essentially frameworks which apply all 7 or many of the management concepts, so that you can, as a small or medium-sized business, you can implement them in your business. The Fortune companies, they all have their McKinseys and they have their MBAs who implement this concept. They have a lot more resources, but a small company, they can't afford probably to hire MBAs, or you can't pay hundreds of thousands of dollars to McKinsey or Boston Consulting. But you can implement these management concepts using frameworks. So these frameworks, I call them management blueprints. And in my book, I talk about 10 different of these frameworks. And depending on what kind of company you are, you can choose one or the other, or you can choose a combination. And it doesn't really depend on the management style of the owner, of the leader. It's more about the situation the company is in. And it's basically a matter of taste. So whichever blueprint resonates with you as an entrepreneur, you will use that blueprint, or you will use a combination of these blueprints.
Okay. And you talk about determining what the major value drivers are in the business. So is that strictly the segment parts of your business that derive the most profit? Is it only about profit? So there are the different value drivers. So the first one is to make sure that you have a transparent business, which has consistent numbers reported and preferably audited. Because when investors come in, they want to see that you are running a clean business and they understand how you're making money and how you are evolving over time. Then you also have to make sure that you have the right structure for your business, because at some point, if you want investors in your business, then you want to make sure that you have a tax-effective structure. You also want to make sure that your business is differentiated, and the chances of you being disrupted is relatively low. So you want to find a blue ocean where you can swim and avoid the shark-infested red oceans. Right.
You also want to make sure that you optimize your business when you want to harvest it. Before you want to harvest it, you make sure that you maximize your profitability, and you make sure that everything is in order in your business, both in terms of assets, in terms of your intangible properties, in terms of your contracts with your employees and your contractors. You also want to make sure that you have repeatable recurring revenues as much as possible, because investors love businesses with recurring revenues that don't have to hunt all their revenues every year from scratch. Mm-hmm. And there are many other ways of increasing your value drivers in the business.
Sure. So maybe to summarize, can you tell us some ways to groom the business into a product that is going to attract investors and buyers? They're going to notice you, and you've achieved a very buyable business at that point.
Mm-hmm. So grooming is really when you already have grown the business to the size, to the profitability that you want, and it's all about optimizing. So it's no longer major strategic shifts. It's about optimizing. It's about putting your right foot forward when you make this first impression. Mm-hmm. The most important thing is that you don't drop the ball in running the business, because what I see many entrepreneurs do is they hire an investment banker, and then they start to visualize all those dollar signs, and they get distracted, and they no longer focus on the vision. They don't no longer have a vision, because their vision is to sell their business. So that's very, very dangerous. So what the most important step is that you find someone, a good advisor or multiple advisors that you trust, and then you keep running your business. You keep focusing on what is the vision for that business, independent of you, and you keep rallying your team so that you're not dropping the ball. The second thing you want to do is you want to make sure that your key people will stay with you through the transaction and beyond, because that's the value of the business, that this is how it's self-managing, that don't have to be there and you have to manage it yourself. You want to make sure that your management team is able to sell the vision of the company. You don't have to personally do it, because then your investors will doubt whether you are indispensable. And that's what happened to me. My investors didn't believe that I was dispensable. And then you have to make sure that you don't invest in things that has a long payback. So you don't want to rebrand your company in the year before the sale, because it's going to cost you a bunch of money. It's not going to pay you back within the next 12 to 18 months, but it's going to depress your profit. You don't want to take out major leases the year before the sale, unless it's absolutely critical, because it's going to depress your equity value with all those debts on the business, and that's going to give you a smaller valuation in the eyes of the investors.
Right.
And there are many other ways of growing the business.
Right. Well, I'm looking forward to getting the book, reading it. How long has the book been available?
It's been available for pre-order since the end of February.
Okay.
And now it's available pre-order, paperback, Kindle, and within a week we'll have the hardback and the Audible copy as well. And I'm going to release it no later than June 1st, but possibly earlier.
Okay.
However, if someone buys it on pre-order, they'll get a 50%, whichever format they choose, they're going to be able to buy it at a 50% discount. So I encourage people to buy it through the pre-order period.
Mm-hmm. I'm curious, your two previous books, did you do Audible as well?
I don't have Audible for those.
Okay. So I found it should be about equal. The sales should be about equal for Audible and Kindle and paperback on the other side. A lot of people, they like to walk or on the treadmill or driving, right? I'm in the car all the time, so I love Audible. So I think I'll get the Audible version for myself.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I just got the email this morning that it's done from the voice artist.
Nice.
My wife begged me not to be the one who reads the book because of my accent. I don't know if that would have helped, but we've got a great voice artist who did it, and it's going to be available within a week as well. So if you want to check it out, welcome, or you just shoot me an email and I'll send it to you.
Fantastic. Well, Steve, I really appreciate your time. I've learned quite a bit. It's the main reason I do this show is because I'm always learning and I want to ask questions that help me in my business. And I love the story of you moving to Virginia. I've lived in the States about half of my life, and it's a great story. So thanks for sharing the story and for your time.
Thank you. And one more thing for the listeners. So if you are an impatient person like I am, and you don't want to wait for the book to come out, you can download the first 40 pages or so. If you go on buyablebusiness.com and you give me your email address, then I will send you the first 42 pages of the book, and you can get your teeth into it faster, and you can decide whether you want to buy it or not.
Perfect. We'll put all those links right into the show notes.
Okay. Well, thank you, Luke. It's been a great... it's been an early and great day. Good day to start the week.
Yep.
And you asked great questions, so thank you for that.
Okay, thank you.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of the Newtown Big Dreams podcast with your host, Luke Menkes, and his authentic guests. And we love our listeners and hope you subscribe now to learn more about the amazing journeys of our incredible guests who relocated to find a new town, big dreams. And remember, make your dreams big.